So now they've made it clear that they're going to destroy every kingdom who are practicing state banking, which is simply distributing all the lands and money or wealth that they can have to the people who don't have any, to make the life of every people fair. So the people in the king in England, those who are going to practice usury and all those Jewish stuffs, are killing all those people, which is pretty cruel. And at a point where they understood that killing and going for actual war against these people are going to make them in debt, which they need people, money, resources, and if they're going to continue it for a long time, they are going to be in slavery. There are going to be only a set of people who are going to have money and land, and the rest will be hopeless, homeless, and end up being slaves to the people who have money. So I'm gonna just, clearly read all those I've written up, and so that it's some sort of amounts and the percentage of interest or the amount of subscriptions and all those things. So I'm just gonna clearly read it out for you. There was a pattern that would emerge where unnecessary wars would be embarked upon with simultaneously increased national debt and the profit of the users. Significantly, most of these wars were started against countries that had implemented interest-free state banking system. As I told, they were going against war to the countries who practice interest-free banking, which is state banking basically. As that was the case in North America colonies and France under Napoleon, this pattern of attacking and enforcing banker system of usury has been deployed widely in the modern era and includes the defeats of Imperial Russia in World War I, Germany, Italy, and Japan in World War II, and most recently in Libya in 2011. These were all countries which had state banking system which distributed the wealth of their respective nations on an equitable basis and provided their population with standard of living far superior to that of their rivals and contemporaries. And some interesting stuff about the banking system. The Bank of England is that within 2 years of establishment in 1696, the Bank of England had 1.75 worth of banknotes circulating with a gold reserve of 2% of 36,000, which is pretty much high. And they are playing they are actually controlling the monopoly. On 1st May 1707, the union between Scotland and England was established, motivated in no small way by the necessity to seize control of the Royal Mint in Edinburgh, which took place in 1709. By 1720, after the conclusion of the War of the Spanish Succession, which was 1701 to 1714, the national debt has risen to 30 million, with the war itself having 50 million pounds. It's a war of independence, 1775 to 1783, which had been fought after the colonists had been forced to replace their debt and largely interest-free colonists equipped with English money, and had resulted in 50% unemployment. The national debt soared to 176 million, according to Sir John Harold Clapham, who wrote the Bank of England, a history of Bank of England, the book at 1694. He said this in 1944, that Solomon de Medina and two da Costas, Fonseca, Enrique, Mendes, Nunes, Rodriguez, Salvador, and Teixeira de Matos, who were all Sephardic Jews, had acquired the majority of the bank shares by 1722, which is clearly unsuspectful. Jews, unsuspectful, clearly unsuspectful. And in 1786, Prime Minister William Pitt the Younger tried to abolish the national debt with a sinking fund which generated interest of £1 million per annum to repay the debt. This scheme was soon abandoned because of the enormous increase in loans secured to finance the war against Napoleon in 1797 in order to pay for burgeoning interest burden. A system of graduated income tax had been introduced, which by 1815 was yielding to 70 million per annum. So he actually bought up too many schemes to repay the debt of the bank. This war against France lasted from 1792 until 1815. Among the principal objectives of this pointless bloodletting was to destroy Napoleon's debt and interest-free system of finance. So they were clearly up to destroy Napoleon and this system of finance. They were too serious about it. During this period, England also waged a war against the United States from 1812 until 1812 to 1814. This war, as was the case with the war against France, he was one of the Rothschild. Okay, after the United States Congress refused to renew the charter of the Rothschild-controlled Bank of the United States, which had been the Central Bank of America from 1791 until 1811. Mayer Amschel Rothschild is famously credited with having said, this is the exact words that have been recorded: "Give me control of the economics of the country, and I care not who makes her laws. The few who understands the system will either be so interested from its profits or so dependent on its favors. There will be no opposition from that class." So it clearly states that if you're gonna stand with them, you're gonna get all the benefits of being unwatched and without paying any tax, and enjoying all the benefits of being rich. And it just indirectly says that if you're gonna stand against the system, they're gonna murder you, they're gonna assassinate you, like making you running into a matrix and just kill you, just like that, like imposing some cases or something, just like they did to Charles, the King Charles, who just died very sadly. His people knew that he would never do those crimes, but even though his people could only do was pray for him, and while he was hanging, they said, "God bless the king, God save the king." That's it. They couldn't do anything because they cannot unsee the fact that he's been imposed or is guilty for the fact that he have done all the mistakes or the illegal things that have been made him to do those things, but they don't know the fact that he's been made to do this. So it happens like that. And after that, let's come to the chapter again. The British Prime Minister Spencer Perceval tried to stop this completely futile war, but was assassinated on 11 May 1812 in the lobby of the House of Commons by John Bellingham, a political radical who had been set up by Rothschild, of course, Rothschilds. By 1815, the national debt had been ballooned to £885 million. This completely unnecessary war resulted in approximately 3 million military personnel and at least 1 million civilians losing their lives. In order to destroy the Napoleon State Bank, it cost the deluded British public a staggering £831 million, of which over 2.5 billion, it's not M, it's B, 2.5 billion were still outstanding in 1914. And the principal of 504 million had over the intervening period increased fivefold as a result of compounding effect of interest. Okay, that's a huge amount of money. An astute agrarian and parliament, William Cobbett, whose lifespan was from 1763 to 1835, at that time received what was a food and wrote as follows. He said that, I said to read the Act of Parliament by which the Bank of England was created. The investors knew what they were about. The design was to mortgage by the decrees the whole country, lands, houses, property, labor. The scheme has produced what the world never saw before, starvation in the midst of abundance. So it's just making money out of thin air and imposing some interest for that and lending it to your own people and making them poor. And by lending it to them, you're making them think that they're rich for a certain amount of time. And by imposing interests, you're just making money from them. And you think about it, if you keep thinking about it, you just go mad about it, because it's a huge monopoly, you know? It's a huge monopoly. And I don't blame that the money system is bad. I blame that the people who are in control of the money system are bad. Because the money system is actually very good, because you can record all the things, record all the transactions, record what is happening inside the country, or the currency is being circulated inside. You can actually record and know what's happening inside. But if you're taking money from the bank as will and using as you will and not returning to the bank, and if that gap is being filled by printing out money, this is a disgusting way of ruling a country. I'm not specifically naming any of those countries, because I don't know, you know, I don't know any of those. So let's keep reading what I've noted. Now, in 1800, a member of parliament, Sir William Putney, proposed the formation of National Bank after having made the vigorous attacks against the bank. In 1824, another member of parliament, David Ricardo, submitted a detailed plan to convert the Bank of England into a national bank. Both attempts failed. The affair of the Bank of England remained secret, and it was not until 1833, 139 years later, a sanitized version of its account was presented to Parliament by means of the Act of 1833. At the start of the World War I in 1914, the national debt stood at £650 million. On March 31, 1919, it had increased to £7.43 billion, of which £3 billion is still outstanding after 95 years, which is outstanding still 95 years. Nothing strange in that. At an interest rate of 3.5% per annum. In the 1919 budget, 40% of expenditure was allocated to the payment of interest. In World War II, the national debt rose by almost 300% from 7.1 billion in 1939 to 20.1 billion in 1945. As of March 2017, it stands at over 1.8 trillion. However, if one includes all liabilities, including state and public pensions, it exceeds 5 trillion. So they're just taking the money out of the bank, and if they're not able to put it back, they just print it out. So the interest of what is being taken is already recorded and kept there, and just not concerned at all. Zero concern. And you know, that's how the system was working. That's a pathetic way to rule a country and have some unlucky people in that country. That's sad. And right now, as I always say at the end of the video, I need you to analyze what I'm saying. I need you to understand what I'm saying. I need you to understand where I am going. I am clearly scared that I wouldn't be able to complete the video, because before that I might be attacked or being cancelled, or I don't know, something might happen to me. Because recently something happened to me, like I recorded the video, I've edited all those videos, and I got the actual notification that the video has been exported to my gallery. And when I searched my whole phone, the video that I've recorded is not available. The art that I've written was not available. It's all vanished. I don't know. It may be my mistake. Okay, you can see that. But it's happening for the 5th or 6th time. I don't know. Something is following me. Something is behind me. Something is controlling what I'm doing. So at any cost, I'm not going to stop. But if its force is heavier than me or bigger than me, let's see. Stay strong.